Your mother needs a compatible blood type to be saved.
What does that mean for us now?
The test confirmed the blood types. You are A positive and you are B negative. Unfortunately, this means you are not a match for the donation.
No, this can't be happening. Please wake up. I beg you, just open your eyes.
That evening, Madame Loy's house was unusually quiet. The usual sharp remarks and cold stares were gone, replaced by an eerie stillness that filled the space. She slowly walked down the staircase, gripping the railing tightly. Her face looked pale, and her breathing grew heavier with each step. Yet, as always, she tried to maintain her strong exterior, refusing to let anyone see her weakness. Suddenly, she stopped. A sharp pain struck her chest. "This can't be," she whispered, clutching her heart. The pain spread quickly, causing her legs to tremble. Within seconds, she lost her balance and collapsed onto the cold floor. "Madam," a servant screamed in panic. The entire house erupted into chaos. Footsteps rushed, voices shouted, and someone frantically called for an ambulance. Madame Loy lay there, her eyes half closed, her breathing shallow. For the first time, the woman who had always been in control was completely helpless. In that moment, there was no power, no schemes, no control. Only the fragile reality of a human life, standing on the edge between life and death. The ambulance sped through the night, its siren cutting through the silence. Inside, medical staff worked quickly, checking Madame Loy's pulse and blood pressure. Every movement was urgent and precise. Upon arrival, she was rushed straight into the emergency room. The cold white lights reflected the tension on the doctors' faces. Commands were given rapidly. "Prepare the monitors. Check blood pressure. We need blood immediately." Outside, Jack had just arrived. He stood frozen, staring through the glass, his heart tightening at the sight of his mother lying motionless. A doctor stepped out, his voice serious. "Her condition is critical. We need to perform a blood transfusion immediately." Jack clenched his fists, feeling for the first time how fragile someone so strong could truly be. After a quick examination, the doctor returned with results that made the situation even worse. "She has a rare blood type," he said, his expression serious. "We don't have enough compatible blood available." Jack froze. "What do we do?" he asked urgently. "We'll contact blood banks and search for a match," the doctor replied, "but time is very limited." Those words felt like a looming sentence. Jack looked through the glass again. His mother lay there, motionless, surrounded by tubes and machines. For the first time, he felt completely powerless. Time passed heavily, each minute dragging on. Calls were made non-stop, to other hospitals, to friends, to anyone who might help. But the answer remained the same. No match. The atmosphere in the hospital hallway grew heavier. Hope began to fade. Jack sat down, holding his head in his hands. He had never been in a situation like this, where money and power meant nothing. There was only one thing that could save his mother. And it was nowhere to be found. Jack stood up and walked toward the emergency room door. Through the glass, he looked at his mother, the woman who had always been cold and strong, now lying there, fragile and weak. Memories flooded his mind, arguments, mistakes, things left unsaid. A wave of regret rose within him. "Please, don't let anything happen," he whispered. It wasn't just the fear of losing his mother. It was the fear of never getting the chance to make things right. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, but to Jack, every second felt like a sharp cut to his heart. The doctor stepped out again, his voice more urgent this time. We don't have much time. If we can't find compatible blood within the next few hours, the situation may become irreversible." Those words froze the air. Jack stood still, his eyes fixed on the emergency room door. He had never felt so powerless. Everything he once relied on, money, status, meant nothing now. He clenched his fists, as if trying to hold on to something slipping away. "No, there has to be a way," he whispered, though his voice carried uncertainty. Inside the emergency room, the lights remained bright. The doctors continued their efforts without stopping. But time was running out. Somewhere else, Tien received a call. She stood frozen upon hearing that Madame Loy was in critical condition. The woman who had caused her so much pain was now standing on the edge of life and death. She slowly lowered her phone, her expression growing heavy. Memories surfaced, moments of being misunderstood, hurt, and pushed into darkness. But alongside those memories was Jack. The man who once doubted her, but ultimately chose to believe her. Tien closed her eyes. A question formed in her mind. "If I can help, should I?" Tien sat down, her hands tightly clasped together. One part of her told her to walk away. That this was simply the consequence Madame Loy had to face. But another part wouldn't allow her to turn her back. "She's still his mother," she whispered. Her heart was torn between two sides, painful memories of the past and the emotions of the present. She remembered the rare peaceful days, the simple but genuine moments. Finally, Tien opened her eyes. Her gaze became more determined. She had made her decision. Tien entered the hospital quietly. No one noticed her arrival. No announcement, no attention. She walked up to the nurse's station. "I want to test my blood, to donate." The nurse looked surprised, but quickly guided her to the testing room. As the needle touched her skin, Tien closed her eyes. Not out of fear, but because she knew this decision would change everything. Moments later, the doctor stepped out holding the test results. He looked at Tien with surprise. "You are a match." She froze slightly. It felt as if fate had arranged everything. Not far away, Jack rushed over after hearing the news. He stopped the moment he saw her. Their eyes met, filled with surprise, emotion, and unspoken thoughts. Jack couldn't believe it. The woman his mother had hurt was the very one who could save her life. The hospital grew quiet as Jack and Tien faced each other. Jack stepped closer, his voice filled with hesitation. You don't have to do this." There was guilt in his tone. Tien looked at him, calmer than he expected. "I know," she replied softly, "but I'm not doing this for her." Jack paused. "I'm doing this for myself," she continued. "I don't want to live with regret, knowing I could have saved someone but chose not to." Her words left Jack speechless. This was no longer about right or wrong. It was about the choice of her heart. Tien lay on the hospital bed, her arm connected to the transfusion line. The white light shone down on her face. Calm, yet determined. Jack stood outside, watching through the glass. He said nothing. But his eyes had changed. There was no more doubt. Only gratitude and admiration. The blood flowing from Tien was not just life. It was forgiveness. Inside the emergency room, the tension was overwhelming. Doctors worked tirelessly, every second critical. The blood transfusion began. The heartbeat monitor flickered weakly. Jack stood outside, his hands clenched. He had never prayed this much before. Please, save her. Not because of the past, but because of the present. After hours of tension, the emergency room doors finally opened. The doctor stepped out, looking relieved. The operation was successful. Jack could hardly believe it. He let out a deep breath, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. Inside, Madame Loy slowly regained consciousness. Her eyes opened weakly. Fragile, but alive. When she learned that Tu Tien was the one who saved her, Madame Loy froze. Tears rolled down her face, for the first time, not out of anger, but regret. She looked toward the door, where Tu Tien stood. The arrogance was gone. Only remorse remained. Why, she whispered. Tu Tien simply gave a soft smile. Because I don't want anyone to die, in hatred. It was a simple sentence. But enough to change everything.
Hello mọi người, hôm nay mình sẽ trình bày câu chuyện về Toàn, một người đàn ông sống với những ký ức đã mất. Khi anh dần dần xây dựng cuộc sống của mình thông qua những công việc thường nhật giản dị và sự chăm sóc thầm lặng của những người xung quanh. Dưới mắt theo dõi của một bà lão, Toàn đã bắt đầu thấy vững vàng trở lại. Dù câu hỏi về quá khứ vẫn tiếp tục làm anh trăn trở. Trung tâm của sự bối rối ấy là Tử Diễm, một cô gái trẻ tốt bụng và tận tâm, người mà sự ấm áp gần gũi của cô khơi gợi những tia sáng le lói của những ký ức bị lãng quên. Mặc dù anh không thể nhớ mình đã yêu cô ấy như thế nào, nhưng sự hiện diện của cô mang lại cho sự an ủi, hy vọng và khát khao lớn lao, muốn tìm lại cho con người mình trước đây. Qua công việc chung, những cuộc trò chuyện nhẹ nhàng, những khoảnh khắc bình dị tràn đầy ấm áp, Toàn nhận ra rằng sự chữa lành không phải là lúc nào cũng đến từ việc nhớ lại mọi thứ cùng một lúc, mà đến từ việc sống và yêu thương, tin tưởng những người luôn ở bên cạnh anh khi anh thấy lạc lõng nhất.